Hey! So in my last video I built this, a mid-range Ryzen 5 3600X RTX 2060 gaming PC, and I thought that it would be interesting to play with this configuration a little and try out some different hardware options, starting with the CPU cooler. The Wraith Spire that's currently installed stands out to me as the weakest component in this entire system. It's just so loud and doesn't even do a good job at keeping the CPU cool, so it's got to go. Something else that's just got to go is this Activate Windows watermark. So I'm going to fix that today with help from this video sponsor, SCD Key. They offer cheap OEM Windows 10 keys. Just head over there using the link in the description down below. If you enter the discount code TPC at checkout, you'll save yourself an additional 15% off. The key is delivered immediately, and then you just search for Activate on your PC and input the code there. Click Activate and the watermark is gone forever. Now back to the video. So my plan is to take a Cooler Master Hyper 212 Black Edition as an example of a value for money cooler, and then also Noctua NH-U12A as a no expense spared premium cooler, and see how much better they perform in this build. Before I do that though, let's just see how bad the Wraith Spire actually is. So for all of the tests, I have all of the case fans fixed to a low RPM, and I'm also going to be using the thermal paste that each cooler comes with for out of the box performance. I'm going to run the ADA64 stress test for 10 minutes, and then use Hardware Info 64 to record the averages over the following 60 seconds. On a side note, the Wraith Spire has had a downgrade this generation, and I'll put the link to one of Hardware Unboxed's videos in the description below if you want to see what AMD have been up to here. So running the Wraith Spire at 100% fan speed, with the fans screaming at me the entire time, the average temps was 79.8 degrees Celsius. I also tested the Spire at 50% fan speed, which was still very audible, and the average temps were 82.3 degrees C. Except for getting the memory to run at its rated 3200 MHz, the 3600X is entirely stock, which means that Precision Boost is constantly evaluating what it should boost to, and this takes thermal headroom into account. So when we look at the average clock speed, which I should mention that I've rounded to the nearest step because it boosts up or down in 25 MHz intervals, you can see that lowering the RPM does result in the CPU running slightly slower. The difference a single 25 MHz step makes to real-world performance is negligible, but it does point towards the Wraith Spire firmly limiting Precision Boost. So let's see how upgrading the CPU cooler will affect things. First up is the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Black Edition. This comes in two variants, a standard one with a black Silencio fan, which is the one that I have here, and also an RGB one that includes an RGB fan instead. Over Christmas, I noticed that the RGB edition was on sale for just £23, and not having the money at the time, I passed on the deal, which was definitely a mistake. Current Amazon pricing is £30 for the standard and £42.50 for the RGB version, which means that you're paying £12.50 to upgrade to an RGB fan if you want the lighting. The build I'm using today is in a Corsair 220T, which already comes with 3 RGB fans and a controller, so to me it seems like a much smarter idea for any additional RGB fans that I buy for this build to be part of the Corsair ecosystem, so that everything is controlled for a single piece of software and can be coordinated easily. So instead of buying the RGB variant of this cooler, I instead bought the standard black edition and added a Corsair SP120 RGB PRO fan for £13 to make my very own Cooler Master meets Corsair RGB black edition cooler. But I'll be testing with the stock fan as well, of course. So the cooler comes with a tube of Master Gel Pro thermal paste, so that's what I'm going to be using here. Fitting this cooler was actually really quite annoying. It requires you to remove your perfectly good metal backplate and replace it with a fiddly plastic one. And the fan clips don't grip very easily, so it took me long enough to get the fan attached that I actually just gave up trying to film that bit. With it installed though, I think it looks great in this system, and is a major upgrade from the Wraith Spire. But onto the performance results. So the Hyper 212 Black Edition at 100% saw the temps drop to 72.1 degrees C, which is 7.7 degrees drop from the Spire. At 50% it ran at 76.2 degrees Celsius. For clock speed though, I saw an average of 4.1 GHz with the fan at full speed, and 4.05 GHz with that at 50%. So this at 50% runs better than the Spire does at full speed. The Corsair 220T has 3 spare ports in its RGB controller for future upgrades, so adding additional fans is very straightforward. Adding this fan makes the Hyper 212 look even better and allows me to add the CPU cooler into my RGB themes. Anyway, on to the results. At 100%, the SP120 ran within margin of error of the Cooler Master fan. That's impressive given that the Cooler Master Silencio fan is rated at 2000 RPM, whereas the SP120 is only rated at 1400 RPM, although both fans are rated at 26 decibels. At 50% fan speed, the 3600X ran at 74.5 degrees Celsius, with the clock speed averaging 4.07 GHz. This means that the CPU clocked slightly higher and ran colder with this fan at 50% versus the stock fan at 50%. Unfortunately, my 50% fan speed tests aren't particularly useful. In an ideal world, I'd love to be able to do noise normalised testing where I can put all the coolers at a predefined noise level and see what wins, but unfortunately that's beyond my capabilities right now. Finally, we have the Noctua NH-U12A. I actually recently installed one of these in my new workstation PC, so I'm just going to be cheeky and reuse footage from that video. This is a premium cooler which offers all-in-one liquid cooler level performance in an air cooler. It's their 5th generation U12A and comes with 2 of their flagship NF-A12 120mm fans. This is an expensive cooler priced at £90, but the fans are normally priced at £25 each, and it comes with some NT-H1 thermal paste, which is what I'll be using with it. I know that some people will have wanted me to use the NT-H1 on all 3 coolers, but a tube of this is £6.50, which is a significant add-on to the £30 Hyper 212, for example. Installing this cooler is extremely straightforward and makes a lot more sense than the Cooler Master method. For one, it uses the board's included metal backplate. You simply mount 2 brackets onto the backplate and then the cooler just screws straight on. There's something about Noctua's products, especially the tan and brown fans, that just makes the build look way more premium to me, although I know the comment section is going to disagree with me on this one. But anyway, on to performance results. At 100% we see a 1 degree drop versus the Hyper 212 at the same clock speed, so I think we're close to the limits of how cool and fast this CPU can run without either overclocking it or using more exotic cooling. At 50% the NH-U12A beats the other coolers by a couple of degrees, which isn't surprising given the push-pull configuration of the fans. But the clock speed does still step down a little versus the fans on full speed. The U12A does come with low noise adapters, which haven't been used here, as I can already tell that the case fans would be louder than the CPU cooler with them in use, so it wouldn't really make much sense to use them unless you go for like a full silence focused Noctua fan setup. Realistically though, this cooler isn't a viable option for a build in this price range, because relative to the price of the motherboard or the CPU, it's just too expensive, so it doesn't make sense. If you are looking to go the Noctua route, then the NH-U12S, or maybe the new Chromax Black Edition, would be more suitable comparison to the Hyper 212 in a mid-range build. The hotter your CPU, the more of a difference you'll see between the U12A and the 212, but the 3600X is pretty easy to keep cool once you've been off the Wraith Spire. Remember, these are ADA 64 stress test temps, so in actual gaming the temps will be significantly lower. So time for some sound recordings. These aren't scientific by any means, but should give you a rough idea. I'd say in person I prefer the tone of the NH-U12A the most, and the Corsair is a little better than the Cooler Master fan, but not by much. So in conclusion, I would say that if you are building a mid-range Ryzen 5 rig like this, you absolutely should replace the stock cooler as soon as possible. If your budget is really tight, then you can make do with the stock cooler whilst you save up for a replacement, but it should, in my opinion, be the first thing on your list. I think that the Hyper 212 is the right sort of product for a build like this. The price fits and it's not overkill. The improvement it makes to the system is huge, with lower temps, lower noise levels and higher clocks. Subjectively, the rig looks better and feels more powerful as it no longer screams at you when under load. Obviously, there are a lot of coolers in this price range to choose from, and I can't say that the Hyper 212 is the best option out of all of them, but it does a job and holds up well against more premium coolers. I would be curious to make this same video again, but on the 12-core 3900X in my new workstation, therefore with the Wraith Prism instead of the Wraith Spire, but still keeping the Cooler Master, Hyper 212 and Noctua NH-U12A. So let me know if that's something you'd be interested in seeing. But as for the build in this video, I am quite liking having a mid-range build to make videos on at this price point. I do think that it should evolve though as I experiment with components. So for now, it's going to keep the Corsair SP120 RGB PRO Edition fan on the Hyper 212 cooler. Although I'll probably pick up a second one of these Corsair fans to replace the cases for a fan with. So if you like this video, then please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and you want to see more of my videos. Thank you so much to my incredible patrons, and thank you for watching.